On today's episode, my kitten tries to ruin my setup. Hi, Artemis. Want to be in the video with me? Good morning, lovelies. This is Artemis. She's my roommate's new kitten. She's just gonna do stuff. Whatever. Today's video is actually a request from one of you guys. A fellow author asked me to make a video about how to write characters or even whole worlds and societies that are from or based off of other cultures that you are not a part of. A lot of writers do want to write, diverse characters or new worlds based on cultures that we are not used to seeing in science fiction and fantasy, but they also don't want to get accused of cultural appropriation. If that is a new phrase for you, cultural appropriation is when someone from a dominant culture steals a trait from another culture, usually an oppressed one, and passes it off as their own, or otherwise uses items or traits from that other culture inappropriately. So the first thing that comes to mind when you think about that is white people using dreadlocks and box braids. Blatantly stealing hairstyles from the black community wouldn't be too bad if there weren't widespread bans on those very hairstyles in almost every type of workplace and school that are only just now being repealed. Blackface and yellowface are other examples, and just overall whitewashing. Whitewashing is Hollywood's practice of hiring white actors to play characters of color. Not only does this have a decades-long history of racism where those actors stereotype such people, but to this day there's not a whole lot of job opportunity for non-white actors compared to the job opportunity for white actors. They get turned away for not having the right look. So having those slim pickings that are available to them get picked up by more white actors, bit of a slap in the face. Now, cultural appropriation is not to be confused with cultural appreciation, which is what a lot of appropriators think they're doing and say that they're doing, but they're not. Cultural appreciation is when someone genuinely wants to broaden their horizons and learn about that other culture because they want to make meaningful connections with those people, or sometimes just for fun. Hey, no shame in that. Appreciation is going out of your way to research, learn, and understand this new world that you are not a part of. Appropriation is just taking what you want for your own personal interest. This religious symbol looks cool, so I'm going to use that in my story, regardless of what it actually signifies and means to its worshippers. No one will notice, and if they do, well then they'll applaud me for being so clever and learned about other cultures. No, they won't. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Chris, this is all well and good for people who are writing stories that take place on Earth, but I'm a fantasy and sci-fi writer. I'm creating whole new worlds that aren't anything like Earth. Who cares if I'm using a few cultural threads from Mongolia or South Africa to make it happen, alright? That's not appropriation. Yeah. We're in the gray area here. I mean, this has worked before. Anyone who's seen any of my other videos on this channel know that I'm such a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And that is because the writers went above and beyond in researching several Asian cultures and depicting fantasy versions of them that feel real, grounded, and diverse. They didn't rush it, they didn't slap a few samurai outfits together and call it a day. No, they went out of their way to give every layer of every society in that show the attention to detail that it deserved. Basically, they did not pull a Planet of the Hats, which is what a lot of writers do when they pull from other cultures for their fantasy and sci-fi worlds. Planet of the Hats is when a fantasy culture... See how many times I can say culture in one video, alright? Take a shot every time, you'll be dead by 5 minutes. Anyway, Planet of the Hats is when a fantasy culture has one very specific trait, and thus... Dang it, don't you dare, Artemis! She was trying to climb the new shelves. Anyway, I'm just gonna hold this so she stays out of trouble. Anyway, Planet of the Hats is when a fantasy culture has one very specific trait, and thus every single character from that culture also has that trait. Like, if there are cat people, well then every single cat person there loves fish and milk and being little shits while their owners are trying to do a YouTube video. Oh, I'm sorry, is this uncomfortable for you? Dork. Alright, anyway, Doctor Who's Daleks are all about exterminating inferior life forms, which is all of them because obviously they're the most superior. Cybermen, same basic thing, and those are just the two most obvious examples from that show. Classic D&D and fantasy stories have drow, orcs, elves, dwarves, and you know each and every one of their hats, alright? Drow are evil and cunning, orcs are warrior barbarians, elves are ancient tree huggers, dwarves are miners and part-time noble warriors, and that's all they are. At least in the bad written ones. Tolkien obviously had a lot more nuance with his characters, but in all the Tolkien copycats, it just goes skin deep. I mean, for crying out loud, how many stories have you read where every single demon or demon-like entity is evil and chaotic, while every single angelic-like entity is good? Game of Thrones did this critically with most, if not all, of its non-European inspired societies, especially the Dothraki, who we spent a good chunk of time with in the first 2 seasons, but all we really know about them is that they're good horse riders, they're raiders, and they're misogynists. And this applies to every Dothraki character we meet. And that's the trap that a lot of people fall for. Because the Dothraki were inspired by the Mongols, who were the undisputable horse lords of the 13th century. But all we see of the Dothraki culture is the raiding and the raping, compared to the far more detailed, intricate, and cultural diversity of Westeros and the real-life complexity of the Mongolian culture. And not every Westerosi character we meet ascribes to the same lifestyle or philosophy. Not every character in a specific region of Westeros even, but just look at the Starks. They're all very different people, and even though Ned tried to raise them all to be honorable to a fault, not all of them do that. This is not true of the Dothraki culture, most of whose names you can't even remember except for Drogo. Now, obviously, the whole point of having a culture is for these points of similarity, alright? The 13th century Mongols had a bitching cavalry. Egypt and the Mesoamericans built really cool pyramids. China had an opium problem, Rome had popular gladiator rings. Stuff happens, patterns exist. But those cultural elements manifest in very different ways in different people, even in the same society. And that needs to be represented in your story, especially if you are pulling from a real-life culture that you are not a part of and that has been historically misrepresented in media. Playing into the hats is both insulting to the cultures that you are pulling from and boring for your readers. We see that hat and immediately know what to expect, and it sucks the joy right out of exploring your otherwise totally fascinating fantasy and sci-fi world. Okay, now that we've talked about what not to do, let's talk about what you can do. And the number one thing to do is research. I feel like a broken record, alright? I have advocated for this step in pretty much every single world building and writing video I've done because it works. It stops so many potential problems before they can actually become a problem. Research the culture that you're thinking about emulating as if you were actually going to go there. Try to actually visit it if you can. This puts you in the mindset not of the appropriative, how can I use this for my own personal gain, but rather the appreciative mindset that will genuinely broaden your horizons and deepen your understanding of that part of the world. Go over their history, its current events, its relationship with other cultures. You don't need to be an expert, but you should be able to at least talk to an expert on the subject without sounding like an idiot for a minimum of 5 minutes. This alone will help you avoid Planet of the Hats, because you're going to see how different factions within this society have formed, split off, joined, and evolved within it, as well as different historical figures that have shaped and been shaped by it. If you were to pull an X-Men, say, and base your story off of the civil rights movement of the 1960s Americas, it wouldn't take much digging to learn that Martin Luther King Jr.'s approach was not the only one, nor was it even considered the best by members of his specific sub-society. Malcolm X had a more militant approach that also made progress. And there were dozens of other views of the civil rights movement from all corners of American society. Once you have a solid understanding of how this society works, or worked in the past, well then it's time to move on to fictional research. Look up all of the harmful tropes and stereotypes perpetuated not just by other societies, but by previous writers. If you're writing about say, a Latino character set in real life USA, you'd want to know about tropes like the spicy Latina, that they all have huge families, that they're all maids and janitors and other blue-collar workers because they all have limited educations, that they're all macho, etc. Know about these stereotypes and tropes early so you can avoid or subvert them in your writing. And then read books of your genre from authors of that culture, or as close as you can get to it. Obviously, if you're trying to base your fantasy society off of ancient Egypt, modern Egyptian writers won't do. Alright, use your head. People write what they want to read, and most people want to see themselves in stories. This is why I typically write a bunch of queer and specifically aromantic or asexual characters in my stories, even if they're just on the periphery. Read as many of these as you can, and then promote your favorites on social media. It's only fair. Finally, sensitivity readers. After you've done all of your research and you've written your manuscript and revised it to the point where it's, at least coherent, well, now you want to grab as many sensitivity readers as you can. Sensitivity readers are a subtype of beta readers, who are people in your target audience who read your book before it's published and provide you with feedback. Sensitivity readers are specifically the people from the culture that you are pulling from or trying to depict. These are the first ones who are going to spot the biggest issues in your story, and they'll let you know. Listen to what they have to say and take their feedback seriously, regardless of your intentions when you're writing it. It doesn't matter what you were trying to do when you wrote in that symbol or that character trait, or what your intentions currently are. What matters is the impact that it is having on your readers. Ignore their advice at your own peril. Look, bottom line, people's culture and history are not your playground. Treat it with respect and remember that there are actual people from these cultures and histories that are going to be reading your shit. I personally like to think about it as if I'm having dinner at someone else's house. I don't make the rules, they do. I'm not going to pretend to know more about their own house, family, or history than they do. And I know that behavior that may be appropriate at my house, like walking around barefoot or leaving all my books spread out on the table, is not going to fly there. Anyone who insists otherwise is being a jerk. I've got more videos on writing diversity here and another on world building here. I've also got a world building checklist, and I offer writing coach services on my website that's linked in the description. I will see you next time. Bye, lovelies.